Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt, and this week I've spent some time with the brand new Buick Enclave. Earlier this year, we were in South Carolina spending some time with its cousin vehicle, the GMC Acadia. And to be honest, this entire segment is experiencing something of a renaissance over the last year or two. So today, I'm going to walk you around and show you the best of the rest of this new Buick Enclave. The first and only, I guess, real major complaint that I could have against this Enclave is that there's no hybrid available. I just kind of feel that most everything in 2024, 2025 should at least have the option of a hybrid. There's only one engine on offer here, and same thing with the Acadia, and I believe the Traverse as well. It's a 2.5 turbocharged 4-cylinder, but to be fair, it's a pretty great little engine. I did a highway tracking trip and got like 33 mpg, and that was through construction. I wasn't going super fast, but still. And all this week I've been getting high 20s overall, and that's with a lot of city and mixed driving. And the fact is, it's only rated for about 21 or 23 mpg, depending on whether you get all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive. And on top of that, it makes 328 horsepower, 326 pound-feet of torque, so it's a great little engine. But I still would like to see a hybrid if it was up to me. And then we are going to talk about the cabin experience, and stay with me a little bit because it's definitely not bad. In fact, it's pretty nice. It's just the black spec that we have here doesn't really have the same wow factor as you would get from the gray and blue or the white and brown that you could get on the Avenir. But you do get this really nice curved screen. The seats are pretty comfortable. They're heated here, but not cooled in your ST trim. You do get some physical buttons for your climate controls, but some of them are worked into the screen as well. But you've got loads of storage for everything in here. And there's some diversity of materials. You get some gloss black, but you've got some textured patterning on the dash, as well as some faux textured alloys up on the dash and into the door card as well. The seats here, like I mentioned, are heated. They're not cooled. They're not massaged, but you can get cooled and massaged in the Avenir trim. And you don't get memory seats here, which is a little odd for a Buick. But let me be clear, there's nothing wrong with the interior here. It's just a little bland, and I don't really know where to categorize this. Which brings me to my next point. Yes, brand placement. What is this supposed to be? Is it supposed to be luxury? Is it not? Is it supposed to compete against Lexus TXs or Acura MDXs, Mazda CX-90s perhaps? Or is this more Grand Highlander? Materials-wise, it's kind of in the middle of the road. Now, granted, we're not in the top Avenir trim, which is usually what the press cars are, but when I was in the Acadia Denali, that interior did feel a little bit more special. An MDX and a TX from Lexus will feel a little bit more premium. But then design-wise, this is very clean, very modern looking, and exterior styling, I think, looks the same. It looks expensive. And tech and features-wise, you can get most anything as long as you pay the right amount and you get the right trim. So I just have a little bit of a confused feeling about with whom this should compete, and we'll talk about that a little bit more behind the wheel later at the end of the video. But then switching gears and talking about all the great things about this Enclave, we're going to start with the third row here because, well, it's great. The space back here is either segment leading or damn near. The headroom is fantastic even for myself at 6'1", and apparently I'm mostly torso, according to Paulo. The legroom is decent, but it can vary depending on where the middle row seats are. You do get some vents in the ceiling, and you get 3 seat belts back here, unlike you get in the Lexus TX. And if the other competitor to this is the Acura MDX, this is worlds bigger than an Acura MDX third row. And you get vents back here, which you don't in the Acura. But then when it comes to the driving experience, it's nice. It feels big. I've got a commanding kind of view of the road from the inside in the cockpit here. The engine sounds maybe a little bit coarse, but it's really smooth. The ride, the way that this thing is damped, is really smooth. You can get an adaptive suspension through your Avenir. I think it's an additional option perhaps, but I don't see why you would need it because this is really comfy the way it is. It's quiet on the highway. The transmission lets the engine rev a little bit, so you get access seemingly to all the power. The steering is really light and completely numb, but it's really easy to maneuver. It's pretty direct. The vehicle responds to when I do this, so it's fine. It really is just kind of easy and inoffensive to drive. If you're an enthusiast and you want something to make you feel something behind the wheel, maybe look at a Pilot or a CX-90. But if you just want to float down the road in peace while Super Cruise drives for you, this isn't a bad option. In fact, it's a pretty good option. And one of the most instantly recognizable positive things about the Enclave is the handsome styling. You've got a huge Buick grille up there, which they've somehow managed to sneak onto all of their cars in the last year or two. But it's certainly supposed to be the more sleek twin to the Acadia versus the trucky look that you get there in geometric style. But the ST here gets the black grille, the Avenir gets chrome accents, but you get the split headlight design, and it's draped in an excellent silver paint, although they call it gray on the configurator. But you get black roof rails up here for your sport touring trim, 20-inch wheels or 22-inch wheels, depending on how you want to spec your car, and black window treatments. You also get black wheel arches, which are gloss covered and not scratchy black plastic. Around back, you get the full width taillight design, which is very clean and expensive looking. No sequential turn signals though for the ST that we have here. You have to go to the Avenir for that. And even with the chrome, I think I do like the Avenir look more. So if it was me, I might stretch to get the Avenir, but no matter how you shake it, Buick has their styling together. And then as we talk about the trunk and the cargo capacity, it's excellent here on the Enclave. Even with the third row up, you're seeing 23 cubic feet of space, which is, I think, the biggest in this segment. You've also got a massive underfloor cubby, which again is just huge. On my sport touring here, the third row does fold mechanically, but on the Avenir you can get power folding third row. With that third row down, you're looking at 57 cubic feet of space, and with everything down, you're looking at a whopping almost 100 cubic feet of space, 97.5. And depending on how you want to spec your Enclave, the tailgate will even sense that you've approached, you hang out for a second, and then it'll automatically open for you. That's just pretty nice, especially if you've got an armful of groceries or, I don't know, diapers, whatever people have in big three-row SUVs. And when it comes to technology, you get pretty much everything here. You can get a full head-up display in your top trim, but here in the ST, you get that little LED marker light. It is all one big screen though when you come down to your cluster and your center screen. It's curved, it looks pretty good, and you get phone projection, wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, not just in the center screen, but also in your gauge cluster. So if you're using Google Maps, or if you want to use the built-in native Google system, there's Google built into the car, you can have that reflected in your instrument cluster, which is super, super nice. You've got Bose speakers, you've got Super Cruise for your driver assistance suite, which is still the best, I would say. You get awesome 360 cameras, you get a digital rear view mirror, again, if you spend the right money and you get the right trim. It's just pretty good. There hasn't been a single thing that I'm like, I wish I had that this week. So I'll take it. And the towing capacity on the Enclave is pretty good too. 5,000 pounds of max capacity. I think you get that on pretty much any Enclave that you want. And that's great. It's totally consistent with everything else in the segment, if not at the top end. And then in terms of the second row, I have a huge amount of knee room. I've got plenty of headroom. It would be nice to have the big panoramic roof from the Avenir, or you could, I think, spec it individually. But there's just a weird thing about the second row here. You see, we've got captain's chairs. That's the only way that you can get your Enclave for this model year. You have to wait till next model year if you want to get the bench seat, and that's going to be on the base trim. But the seats themselves are great. They have the interesting perforated leather, you've got the white piping, and they're child seat friendly, the way that they get out of the way for the third row. You don't get window shades back here. You can get heated seats, though not in the Sport Touring, but no cooled seats in the back, which is a little bit of a ding. But even here in the Sport Touring, I've got a climate zone, I've got chargers, I've got pockets, I've got cup holders, and most of all, I've got space and I've got comfort. And that's kind of what I'm looking for, and probably what the people in the back seats are going to be looking for. And then finally, in terms of price, the Enclave starts at $45,000. That's $2,000 more than a Grand Highlander, but it's going to be the same as the Grand Highlander Hybrid. And the Grand Highlander will then get more expensive than this. So topped out, this is actually going to be a bit cheaper. $1,000 difference between this and the Acadia. I would kind of expect that based on this is supposed to be the more sleek and luxurious version of that. But this is way cheaper than a TX. It's going to be cheaper than an MDX, I believe, as well. So here, we're doing about $47,400 for the ST trim to start. It's not so bad. There's a couple little odds and ends or little details that we didn't cover in the main video here, but we'll cover them on our Instagram reels, so make sure you check that out. There'll be a link in the description. Since there's fake carbon fiber on the engine, I've put this thing into sport, because what's more sporty than a 3-row Buick Enclave? Oh, tire squeal into the left-hander. Immediate body control. It's fine. The engine's a little coarse. It sounds a little, whatever. But the thing that's really stuck with me this week in driving this Enclave is just easy. It's just kind of inoffensive. I will be honest, there's nothing that's really made me feel like this is special or like I'm going to remember this week that I've had with the Enclave long term. But that's to say, there's been nothing wrong with it this week either. It's very easy to drive, the ride is great, the visibility is great, the interior is nice, although I would like a little bit more unique interior, but you can get that from the Avenir. It gets good fuel economy, Super Cruise is amazing, as always, and the space is freaking huge. The trunk is enormous, third row, adult size, and that's kind of where the segment is going. The thing that I have to bring up is something we talked about a little bit earlier, and it's like, when I think of Buick, I don't really know, and this is maybe something that goes away with time or erodes with time, because Buick has done a great job with their entire lineup lately. So they're making strides, but there's still that sense of, are buyers gonna know what this is or what it's supposed to compete against, or like, because basically you have Chevy, right? Chevy's got their Traverse. And then you've got the nicer version of the Traverse, which is the Acadia. But then this is supposed to be a nicer version of the Acadia, perhaps? I think what it comes down to is styling. There's about $1,000 difference between the Acadia and the Enclave here, and the Enclave is very clearly supposed to be more sleek, less trucky, less geometric, more swoopy, more elegant, more Mazda in that way. And then the Acadia is supposed to be, you know, more geometric, more boxy, more rugged looking. But then my question becomes like, what happens to Cadillac? And I know Cadillac has come out in the past and said, oh, we're gonna make all EVs and our whole lineup is gonna be EVs, but everyone's walking that back now, I think Cadillac included. And there is a 2025 XT6 that's still on sale. I would imagine that gets updated to this chassis, this platform, and will be a very similar thing to this. So now all of a sudden, you have the Traverse, and then you've got three nicer versions of the Traverse. If you have a Cadillac XT6, you have a Buick Enclave, and you have a GMC Acadia. And that just feels a little bit busy. Now, they haven't come out and said that they're gonna do a new version of the XT6. We don't know. But when you look at it from that perspective, it does seem to be a little bit cluttered, this lineup and this specific vehicle here. But when you just look at it in a vacuum, this is a perfectly pleasant thing. It's incredibly comfortable, like I've said. It's got all the features that I would want, and it seems like people like these things. They look good. There's a house on my block, and I'm not even kidding. I wish I was kidding about this. There's a house on my block where somebody owns either 3 or 4 Invistas. I'm not kidding. It's at least 3. It might be 4. I don't know if like they just have one for all their friends and all their friends live with them or something. It's just weird. But people like these things, and I see why. It doesn't have the most personality, but does anything really have a lot of personality in this class? But what it does have is everything that I would want to make my life easy. And that's probably more the point of this class than having a lot of personality. So with that, thank you to Buick for the first loan that we've had on the channel. Thank you for letting us have a go in your Enclave, and we'll see you in the next one. Leave it down in the comments what you would take, this, a new XT6, or an Acadia, or a Traverse. Or if you would go all the way up to something like an Escalade or a Tahoe or a Yukon. We'll see you in the next one.